Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video. I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, I'll go through my trades for the week first and then progress into the video shortly after, so feel free to skip ahead on the timestamps down below. But I only have one trade this week on NZJPY, which came right at the end of the week on Friday. I almost didn't take a trade this week, but NZJPY did look really good to me, and I got into the position on Friday, so yesterday. So price was coming to a really nice level, good confluence on the higher time frames. I'm looking to see if we can print that next lower high in the market. You can see we got one over there, second one there after we took out these lows with that push. I'm looking for that third lower high on that double top coming into that trend line area there as well. So that's the plan. Going to the trade, I actually did a breakdown of my entry and how I got involved with this trade in the video I dropped yesterday by entry, so feel free to go check that out if you haven't done already. But this is the current trade I'm in. Haven't taken profit yet or moved stop loss to break even, so currently risk is still on the table, and we'll be looking to manage the trade as we come into this low here. Then I'll manage it in this low, and then eventually my end goal for the trade is back down at these lows down here. So I'll let you guys know how the trade gets on next week, but this is the current trade I'm in, and we'll see that continues into the following week. But back to the analysis, we'll start with Euro USD like always. So yeah, Euro USD is looking pretty good. So I'm looking for buys for this one this week. We are still seeing continuation to the upside. Coming into the week, we were looking for some downside, which we did see. It didn't really kick off. Coming into the week, I said there's likely to see retracement, because we were holding this resistance level. As you can see, the market was rejecting a few times, and then I think we're trading around here. So I said there's likely going to see some downside. We did form some downside with that big push, but I did say be careful because we still could print that higher low. We are still mapping out higher lows here for Euro USD, so the buyers are in still overall control of the market, but we are likely to see some retracement, which we did. Then we saw the higher low form, and since then the market rocketed to the upside and actually pushed past this point here and formed some new highs past 1.10333. As you can see, if I scroll across, printed some new highs. So although the structure for Euro USD is still deemed to be bullish, we might be seeing some bit more downside and have a deep retracement back into this area here, which could provide some nice short-term buys. And the reason why I'm looking for short-term buys for Euro is because we're at another very sensitive area in the higher time frames. Go to the daily, weekly, this is a very critical high, which potentially could be the next time we see some larger downside for Euro USD now that we snap through the highs there. So we don't really want to be buying into such key levels, which is why short-term buys look good. We do have a really good level of resistance here, which hasn't been used as support yet. So hopefully coming down, we can use that as support. We've got the trend line confluence, probably a nice fib level there of that low to the high. Probably see a nice bounce there, maybe back to highs, then we can call it a day. Potentially the trend might continue, might rally to the moon if dollar is very, very weak. That is definitely a possibility, but again, we're traders and not necessarily analysts. We can be analysts, but we're definitely traders first. We want to make sure we're taking our profit in sensible areas. If you want to shoot for the moon, feel free, but make sure you're paying yourself and taking profit along the way, and leave small percentages of your positions to run. So this is what I'm looking at for Euro USD, another retest of 1.092. So that does great resistance. So I do have a good inkling that will hold a support most likely. Obviously we wait for our confirmations, and that's why we're looking for a bounce for Euro USD back to highs and nothing there. It might not even get back to highs. We do have this running through. We might just test this area at 1.103 and roll over from there. So do take that into account. Maybe that could be a smart place to take your profit, but that'll be up to you, as you're the trader of your account. So yeah, that was the plan for Euro USD. Looking for buys from 1.09268 back to highs around 1.10694, and that was the plan going into next week. Okay, so over to USD JPY. So coming into the week, I was looking for some sells for this one. Never quite materialized. We had this beautiful broken support level. Was looking for that to hold as resistance to see some downside. Never got the confirmation, and price broke straight through. Since then, we've actually developed this bullish structure. I'm actually favoring more upside for USD JPY going into next week. Now, I still I'm fully aware of the higher time frame head and shoulder pattern, which could still be at play. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. As long as we don't start breaking through this area here at 136.878 on the weekly, that head and shoulder pattern could still be at play, and we could still be looking to push down to those lows. However, I trade the 4H time frame. I just utilize the higher time frames for confluence. So unless USD JPY does something like this, comes straight back down, violates the trend line, violates that structure, then I'll start looking for shorts for USD JPY. And that'll be the only condition that I start looking for shorts, because my primary time frame for analysis and looking for setups is the 4H. So if the 4H is bullish, most likely I will be looking for longs. 4H is bearish, most likely I will be looking for short. So I will not be looking to short USD JPY with these successive high lows, and looks like we are starting to print some new highs as well. So going into next week for shorts, this is the only opportunity I'm looking at. Breakthrough 132, retest, and then continuation. But most likely we'll probably just get price holding support and continuation. So buys from around 132 270 look good. Obviously price right now is approaching resistance. This is definitely not a place that you want to go long. Best bet was obviously going long there on Friday, but if you can get another retest, still hold the trend line, still hold the support, I do think you can ride that momentum back into highs, call it a day there. Or we do have some resistance just above the high, which if price wants to make some new highs, this is a great place. Price could go and do that around 134.500. So going forward for USD JPY, I'm still bullish on the 4H, looking for more upside into that zone. If you do violate structure and the higher time frame head and shoulder does start to come into play, then we'll be looking for the retest of that 132 mark. I'm not too sure if it will, but if it does, I will keep that in mind, because again, I want the 4H to be bearish first before I'm looking to sell the market. And obviously these lows here would be the target for that trade. But going into next week, still focused on the buys for now. Hopefully you can hold 132.300 and looking for continuation back to 134.500 for next week. Okay, so over to USD CADs. USD CADs come into a very nice area on the higher time frames. Again, I've been talking about USD CAD buys. Hasn't really set up yet for the buys. We had this kind of corrective price action over the past few days, and since then we've really spilled over to the downside with this big impulse to the downside. So we had the impulse, correction, impulse, no real buy setup, but we are coming to some key support and a key area on the higher time frames, where if you can hold this, I do think we're likely for a bounce for USD CAD, because again, daily charts still printing these higher lows, as we can see, 1, 2, 3, and even way before that, the market's still printing these higher lows. So this is going to be a very critical kind of structure the market is holding right now. If it breaks through that, it could be the sign of potentially a big retracement for continuation, or actually maybe even a reversal if you break through. So that will be something that we keep an eye on from a daily perspective. But right now we're coming to some key support in the higher time frames and this key trend line as well. So I do think even if it's short term, we can probably get a bounce to the upside. If the market wants to break through and change direction, that's fine as well. I'm a trader, I don't really care where the market's going. I just want to find some good opportunities in the market. So if we do want to break through this, that's perfectly fine. But there might be some short-term buys we can take advantage of. Could be a long-term buy, it could end up doing something like this. It doesn't really matter. We'll pay ourselves on the way up if you do get into any buy positions. But this 1.33 area, really good confluence. You can see that support previously, big wicks into that area, big move to the upside. We're back at that same area again. If we can see some more evidence that the market's holding to this area next week, I will be looking for buys and targets. There's a couple which I'll be looking at, but most likely these two be the main targets. Maybe first target, second target, or maybe depending on risk reward, I might just call it a day at 1.342. Because we do have this bearish momentum, which I don't really want to, call the huge reversal on. Even though it is a possibility, I want to make sure I'm getting, taking my profits at reasonable places. So this will most likely be the plan going into next week for USD CAD for any buy positions, buying around 1.33200, looking for a push into 1.341, and then secondly into a push into 1.35. 1.353. So USD CAD looking for longs. That's still been the bias the past couple of weeks, and that's still the bias as long as we can hold this level. If we see a strong daily close below, that's what will invalidate that bias, and I'll be a bit more neutral for USD CAD, just waiting for development for what I can do next with it. But at the moment, still looking for buys. Really nice reaction from the news on Friday. So let's see if we can come back into that area, start holding again, and then we can look for some buys with slightly bit better risk to reward back into this resistance here, and then secondly into that 1.353 level for next week. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound this week, really nice rally to the upside. The market respected this support. I've been looking for downside for Euro Pound, but not willing to sell at these prices here. Main reason, we've kind of got this bigger consolidation with very speculative price action, very sporadic price action. The market's moving up and down a lot of big wicks as well. So I don't want to try and get caught in some shorts here and just get taken out on a wick, or just scruffy price action and be sitting on a trade going sideways. I want to focus at the extremes, where price is most likely going to reverse from, and if it does have a breakout, it's very meaningful. Break of support and resistance here is not too meaningful because it's within a bigger range. But right now, Euro Pound's coming to a very key area, which last week was the area that I was talking about. If we can get pushed into here, I'll be willing to be looking for sells. We've got this high time frame trend line with that high there, second high there, and now coming in for that potential third high, coming into a very nice level of resistance. A stop loss around here is a much safer stop loss than any stop loss you can have anywhere in these areas, whether you're buying or selling. There's a higher chance of getting wicked out unnecessarily around here than up there. Of course, nothing's perfect. We can still take a losing trade up here, but I'd rather take my stop loss here than somewhere scruffy in those markets. So I'm looking at this very slight corrective bearish trend. We've got a high over here, lower high, lower low, sorry, lower high, lower low, and then potentially lower high, looking for another drive back down into this key support level there. So that's the thesis, that's the plan coming into the week for Euro Pound. And now we're testing that area. We just about test it by the end of the week. You can see a slight reaction there on the hourly time frame just before the candle closed. So we'll see how that holds up London on Monday. We might just open and break through, or we might throw in some wicks to the upside. If that's the case, I do think there can be some nice entries back down to this area here, potentially this area here as well, and then potentially with an end target back down to those lows. So it's up to you how you want to manage that trade. If I do get into any positions here, I most likely will not be targeting all the way down there. Even though the risk reward looks very tidy, I'm going to be very happy to take profit around these areas around 1 to 3. So these will most likely be my targets. If things look good, I might leave some small amounts to run into these lows, but this will be the kind of overall move I'll be expecting. But in terms of actually taking profits, these are the areas I'll be looking at the most, and maybe a small amount to trickle down to those lows. So this will be the plan going forward for Euro Pound. Very critical area. You can see the lower highs, a lot of strong momentum to the downside. Now we've rallied up into this level. If we can hold this, I do think we can see a good reversal for Euro Pound back down to 0.88200, 0.878, and then potentially all the way down to 0.874 as well. So keep an eye out for that opportunity next week. Okay, so over to AUD/USD. So this pair is still very corrective. I've been crying out for a big move in the market to take out some key lows, take out some key highs, and really show momentum in a particular direction. I thought we were going to see that coming to the end of the week. We did see a really big move to the upside. Needed price to start breaking through the highs here, but we didn't do that. Market came and kissed the highs, few wicks to the upside. We had that last wick there with the news, and the market dumped to the downside. So I'm still treating this as a bigger ascending channel here, which could just be a bigger correction of this bearish move on the left here. So impulse could just be a longer consolidation correction for another continuation to the downside, similar to what we saw here. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for AUD/USD. I would favor more upside, but the fact that we failed to take at the highs is a big sign that the market is most likely going to eventually head lower and see the impulse down. So for next week, I do think there can be some short-term buys. I wouldn't push it too far. Like I said, the market's starting to respect the highs now. I do think the next up move for AUD/USD most likely will just form a lower high. Maybe it might come and kiss that resistance again if it's generous enough for the buys, but I do think most likely probably form a lower high somewhere. Maybe we test the resistance here and form a lower high there around 0.674, and potentially start looking to roll over and start breaking out the structure, and we can start seeing some momentum to the downside. So Going forward for AUD/USD, I do think there could be some nice buys here because again, we do have this corrective bullish channel here coming into some key support around 0.666. I do think we're likely to see a bounce. And like I said, I wouldn't push the trade too far. This resistance could be a nice place to take some partials, and I wouldn't push the trade further than that resistance there at 0.678. So AUD/USD, looking for buys for next week, some short-term buys for this one. If you start breaking out the channel and we see maybe a lot of strength in the dollar and we start breaking to the downside, then we'll start looking for this type of pattern for the continuation lower. But only when that happens will I start looking for shorts for AU. Right now we still do have this bullish corrective structure, which I do think will probably give us a good bounce, at least back to 0.67 if we can see some good confirmations in that area. So that'll be the plan going forward for AUD/USD, some short-term buys. I do think this market most likely will be going down over next week or a few weeks time, but we can probably take advantage of some short-term buys before that happens, and then maybe look for some sales later on. So keep an eye out for that for next week for AU. Okay, so next up we've got NZD CAD. So NZD CAD, more downside for this one. We're looking for price to hold onto this support level here. Didn't quite get the entry I was looking for on NZD CAD. The market was holding to that level at the end of last week. So I said coming to this week, Monday, if you can retest that level, look for our entries around that area. Didn't quite do that. We opened for the market around here. The market pushed down, didn't quite come back up into that same area, but we did see the continuation eventually coming into these lows here and actually push past them, as we can see with that pullback and continuation as well. So for me, the way I look at it, NZD CAD is still a very bearish market here. I'm looking at corrections and continuations on the higher time frames. I've been talking about a very key level of support on the higher time frames across this area here, which the market's coming into now. So I do think there is room for a bounce for NZD CAD, but I'm not looking to try and anticipate that. The 4H structure is very bearish, and I'm only going to be looking to plan to take sells as long as the 4H remains bearish. So we'll be looking at this high here on the daily time frame around 0.825. You can see this was the last high for that last down move, then we ripped through that. Could be looking at a retest or just a revisit to that level. We might break through or something, but I want to see some corrections for NZD CAD in terms of the structure and the momentum. Things are looking very good to the downside. You can see with this huge candle to the downside, price is showing a lot of momentum for the bears here. So this is good momentum, something you want to follow. If the market is kind enough to retrace for us, I do think it'll probably give us a really nice continuation for it. So we'll be keeping an eye on NZD CAD. In terms of areas of entry, areas of interest, it depends how aggressive NZD CAD is with the retracement. It might just be kind enough to retest this low here around 0.83271 and then continue. It might give us a deeper retracement into this area here, 1, 2, 3, the trend line into that support and resistance. That will be up to NZD CAD. So these are kind of the only two areas I'm looking at to short. I'm not too sure which one it will give us. If I had to choose, I'd probably say we most likely only see a brief retest and a continuation, because the market is displaying a lot of momentum, and even the higher time frames as well. If you take a look at the weekly candle closure, didn't close without any wick there to the downside. So we're seeing kind of a lot of momentum on the higher time frames here on the weekly, daily as well, starting to pick up some pace. So I'm not too sure if we'll get a deeper retracement. We've already been seeing quite a few deep retracements. It might be time to get some shallow ones and some continuation. But of course, we stay reactive. If the market gives us a deeper retracement into the high there, much better risk to reward for us anyway. If it's just a shallow one, keep an eye out for 0.833 for that shallow retest. But yeah, in terms of direction, looking at downside, in terms of targets, looking at that daily high around 0.82500. So keep an eye out for that for NZD CAD going into next week. Okay, so next up, pound NZD. So pound NZD is coming up to some critical areas in the higher time frames. If I'm talking specifically about the weekly chart, weekly daily chart, coming up to some key areas here. Now, the way I view pound NZD on the higher time frames is basically just a big consolidation. So I'm just keeping note of the key levels in the market and looking at us kind of ping pong from level to level pretty much, because you can see if I zoom out, it's a big consolidation here. Yes, if we probably go to the monthly time frame, quarterly time frame, it is a downtrend here, but again, we're not really looking at that that high of a time frame to take that trend into account too much. This is more consolidation, more looking from level to level aspect. So I'm looking at looking at 2.000, so basically the big psychological level at 2. I'm looking at pushback down to 1.96. You can see a big wick there through on the weekly time frame, struggling to get that closure above. So we're seeing some signs that the market's failing to break through, and there's some room to the downside. But first, let me see that break of structure on the lower time frames for me to be looking for sales for pound NZD, because again, just utilizing the higher time frame for confluence, but for entries and setups, I'm using the 4H. So you can see comfortable uptrend there. I need to see that break of structure first, which is breaking through the trend line, and most importantly, breaking through this support level, those higher lows, and then I'll be looking for some continuations to the downside on the retest of 1.985. So I need to see that sharp breakthrough first, showing me that we are starting to print some lower highs here. We've also got the high there, potentially a second lower high there. Could see a third on the retest, and that's where I want to be looking for my entries, because now at least we've got a bit of a bearish structure to work with and a break of the trend line, break of some support levels. Now this increases the probability of the trade working out a lot more. And if I try and short up here, yes, it does make sense, shorting at the resistance, maximize the risk to reward as well. But I'd much rather take the lesser risk to rewards and take the higher probability trade, because again, I'm not trying to get the biggest risk to reward. I'm trying to take good trades with good probability with decent risk to reward. 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 are very good risk to rewards to be working with. So we can most likely get something like that off the hourly time frame into a level around 1.96, which is that high time frame level we'll be targeting. So if I whip out the old risk to reward tool, this will be something I'm imagining for pound NZD. Now the market is still bullish. We could still definitely rally through, which is another reason why I'm not looking to short up here. The market is still bullish. We could still rally through. In fact, if we do that, start breaking through on the retest, we could actually be looking for higher lows for the continuation of that move. So I would actually be favoring longs if you start breaking through that level. But like I said, pound NZD is ranging in the higher time frames. I think there's a much higher probability that we'll see a rejection rather than continuation. Even if we do see a continuation, I think it'll be short-lived. The market will most likely come straight back underneath. You can see with the way we broke out, sharp move back down. If we break up again, I do think we'll see another sharp move back down. So what I'll be waiting for is the break of structure, break for the trend line, a retest of that support level at 1.985, and shorts down into the 1.96 area for next week. Okay, so onto CAD yen. So CAD yen is coming to some critical areas now. If I go to the higher time frame, specifically the daily chart, as you can see, we do have this, didn't mean to lock that. We have this daily chart here giving us this descending channel here, ever so slightly descending. It's more consolidation really. You've got resistance up there, support down there. But you can see we are making some steady lower highs. Now coming back into that same area, back into this consolidation here on the daily chart. I think if you can see some good signs of reversal here on the 4H, we could be looking for some shorts to take this back down again. Potentially all the way back down to the lows there. But of course, I'll be looking to take my profit a long way before that, coming to some of these areas here. This is where our higher low is on the 4H. Now I wouldn't be looking to push past that, especially for next week, which is around 97,500. So I'll be looking for some patterns around here to sell. Right now we're just getting this impulse up. Could you see a correction continuation? So I need to see the market failing to create new highs, and see some lower lows and lower highs first before I jump in. So there isn't a specific level I can point out to you guys right now which I'll be keen to short from. I just need to see that development in and around this area. So I'm just going to highlight the high here as an area that we can look to short from. If it's that area specifically, I have no idea. I'll be waiting for price action to develop. Probably won't be this area, but within this range here, within that daily range here, this is where I'll be looking to place those shorts, coming to that trend line area as well, looking for a move back down into this higher low on the 4H. So that'll be the plan going forward for CAD yen, looking for sales in this area. It's still a little bit premature. I need to see that price action of the market failing to create new highs first, because for all I know, we could actually be having a breakout here. A lot of the yen pairs have been seeing a lot of strength. A lot of yen pairs are getting close to their previous weekly and monthly highs. CAD yen might be looking to recover and start breaking to the upside as well. So I need to see some evidence that the market's going to be holding on to this area in terms of structure, not just candlesticks, and then I'll be looking for my sell. So only when I get that, I'll be interested. But anywhere around this 99,500, 100, 100.5 area, I'll be interested for some sells with targets back down at this low here at 97,500. Okay, so on to pound USD. So pound USD, we did see some upside this week. Again, I've been a little bit reluctant to look to get too involved with pound USD because we're trading at these sensitive areas, which I've been speaking about on the daily chart. You know, at the high of a ranging market here, pound USD on the daily chart has been moving sideways here. Clear support, clear resistance. Market's been fluctuating between these two levels. And the market's been dancing around this area, faking to the upside, faking to the downside. Looks like potentially even faking to the upside again. So this is why I don't look to trade within these areas, especially on the higher time frames, especially on the daily, weekly. These are very sensitive, you know, regions where the market is picking its next big move. You know, if this is going to be a bigger fake out, this kind of like double top, if you wish, of the range, you know, we could be seeing a big move down. You know, that's the move I'll be interested in, not necessarily getting it at the beginning, but if I can get a lower high somewhere on the way down, you know, I can still bag my 1 to 3, 1 to 4 potentially, and move on and be happy with those profits. I don't need to try and, you know, guess if the market's going to break out or not, because again, this price action is hectic. You know, people be getting caught on the wrong side, to the upside, to the downside, and looks like to the upside again. So with pound USD, the structure is still bullish. So obviously 4H is where I spend most of my time for price action. So this is where I'm spending you know, most of my time on pound USD, not necessarily looking at the daily chart of the level we're trading at, but mostly looking at this 4H structure. So I'm kind of waiting for more development here, whether we start breaking through to the downside, if it is going to be a fake out, breaking through the trend line, and most importantly, breaking through this low here at 1.23500. If we can do that, that'll be fantastic. Then from there, I'll be expecting some corrections and continuation to the downside. So I'll probably be looking for the retest of the prior low and then looking for the continuation to the downside. Most likely maybe into this area here. There's a lot of confluence around 1.22, big psychological level, and obviously proven as a good level of resistance and support as well recently. So this is probably what I'll be looking at going into next week for pound USD. If you can start breaking through the trend line, breaking through the lows here, and looking for the sells to the downside. If I'm looking for buys for pound USD, I need to see price recover back above this area, and then I can start looking for longs on top, most likely pushing through and create some new highs as well, because I don't want to see more fluctuation here and trying to guess the market and get in too early. I want to see clear signs that, okay, this bullish trend here on the 4H is still alive and well, and we are breaking truly through that daily resistance level on the daily time frame. I don't want to see a slight close above and then try and look for the retest early on. It potentially might work, but that's not the trade I want to take. I want to take trades which are confident, which are show me clear signs that, okay, we're still printing new highs despite this bearish sell-off here. You know, let me look for the retest and the next higher low. Or if we do sell off and we decide to have a big fake out and start breaking through some lows, I'll look for the retracement and then get involved off the back of that. So I'll still be keeping an eye on the daily level around 1.245. For some longs if you do start pushing up again, but if you do go for the reversal, I will be looking for the retest of 1.235 for push back down into 1.22 for next week. Okay, so now onto pound CAD, and pound CAD is starting to look interesting again. We're starting to see some good momentum. It looks like the market has well and truly failed, or most likely failed, from these highs here against a very critical level. I know it's resistance here as well, but if you do take a look at the higher time frames, this level the market is rejecting is very, very critical in the weekly time frame. Key support here, held the support for like, you know, a year, 2020 June to December 2021, and we had the breakout March 2022. So this is a very key level of support in the higher time frames. As you can see, we had a strong reaction once. Now we're back in it again, back into the same area again, and still seeing bearish engulfings here on the weekly. So I do think we'll probably most likely see some more downside. Could even see a move back down into this support level here. So there could actually be a pretty big decline there for pound CAD. So taking that information into the 4H time frame, you can see we're getting some lower highs now and some lower lows. Again, I'm a big fan of structure. That's the most important thing I'm trading, not necessarily trying to get involved at those big levels, but just waiting for the structure to, you know, come through those levels. We know the levels there, so that's why I deleted it. So yeah, I'm looking for the correction now. We had a nice impulse to the downside. Looks like the market is about to take out these lows. Haven't quite done it yet. I'm kind of closed at it there, so it's most likely we'll get a closure below early next week. So I'm looking at that impulse and the correction, and this is the most obvious level I can see for pound CAD, the retest of 1.672. pull back into that area and then get the continuation to the downside. Really nice support, held support a few times, big push to the upside, then melted straight through that level. So a retest of that area will well and truly interest me for some continuation. So pound CAD, I'll be keeping an eye on 1.67, 1.672. As for targets, we've got some really nice targets to look for as well. We do have that daily level, weekly level down here at 1.62, but we can be looking at some of these areas as some nice targets. Broken resistance once, never retested. Broken resistance twice, never retested. So there's a big chance pound CAD will probably be looking at coming to these areas here, specifically at 1.648 and 1.64. So those would be the targets for pound CAD on some retracement. But yeah, 1.672 is the only logical place I can look to sell pound CAD from at the moment. Maybe if you create some new structure within the week, we can probably look at some new levels, but this is the only level I'm interested at the moment to short pound CAD from. But in terms of direction, seeing some good momentum back in the market, looking for correction and targets. Could we back down to these lows here? We got 1.648 there as well and 1.64 there. So keep an eye out for pound CAD for next week. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen ripping to the upside this week again. I was looking for buys coming into the week, didn't quite come into my area. Was looking for a push into this level here, 161, just above 161.500. Didn't quite see the retracement I wanted. Price ripped to the upside, and since then has actually closed above this, creating some new highs. So the market is starting to look quite a lot bullish now for pound yen. Starting to get some successful closures within this wick area. If the market kept throwing wicks into this area, then we probably would have a strong possibility of a decline for pound yen. But now we're getting some successful daily candle closures and successive higher lows as well. We most likely will be pushing further to the upside for pound yen, and I'm looking at push into this resistance here, not too far away, just above or just around 168. So pound yen, I'm looking at buys. Obviously right now this is still bearish territory, coming back into these wick highs here. I'm not looking to buy pound yen all the way up there. I want to see corrections back down into this area here, near that higher low, around 164 into this area, then look for the next push to the upside. Probably just take it back to the highs, back to where we came from. Probably a deeper retracement into the 0.618 area there, close to 0.786 as well. So that's what I'll be looking at for pound yen. In terms of the bias, it's definitely bullish for this one. Looking for a push back to highs, maybe 168. I might leave some to trickle. But in terms of structure, we broke through this bearish structure a long time ago now. Strong break of the high, big impulse to the upside, and since then printed a new higher low and a new higher high. So now my job here on the 4H is looking for that next higher low for a push to the upside. We've got some equal lows here, some weak lows here on the lower time frames. Stuck at that resistance, we might go and fake through that, test this area, and then we can look for our buys to take it to the upside. So that will really interest me for pound yen, because in terms of the higher time frames, there's a good chance we are going to push that 168 area. So if we can get into a buy, I'll be more than happy to get some entries for this one if it presents itself. So keep an eye out for pound yen. I like the setup with this one. It probably will be on the watch list. But yeah, that will be the plan for pound yen going into next week. Okay, so gold. So gold's looking very good as well. Another pair that probably will be on my watch list. I'm really liking the setup for gold. Coming into the week, we were looking for longs on the retest of this structure here. We've got the retest there, continuation to the upside. Now I'm looking for the retest of this structure around 2K, very infamous psychological level for gold. Now we're retesting that as support. Didn't quite hold the support originally. Price did broke through, kind of flirted with it, broke underneath, broke back above. So it's been a little bit all over the place recently, but was very good resistance here. I'm expecting it to hold as support now as well, along with that trendline confluence. So if we can start throwing some wicks to the downside here, because it was quite a strong sell-off here for gold, very impulsive sell-off. So it could be the catalyst, could be the start, possibly a reversal to the downside. So I want to see a lot of evidence that the market is holding onto the support level, and we can simply look for some buys right back to the highs. There is the all-time highs for gold around 2075, which I'm still pretty confident price is going to go take out those out those highs pretty soon, whether we go and do it now or we have a deeper retracement, start a bigger correction from a daily perspective maybe, and then see another higher low somewhere down there, then push, because we are printing the low here, the higher low, the higher high. We can still retrace and retest some structure and then push, or we might just push there. So it's up to gold what it wants to do, whether it wants to continue that momentum right now or have a deeper pullback and then continue. Either which way, that's still the long-term target, 2075 for gold. But again, we're trading the 4H here. We're not really too concerned about the daily just yet until we start breaking through some structure. So this will be the plan going forward for gold. A retest of this area. We're trading at the area right now, so I will be monitoring coming into the start of the week for gold, seeing how London session is reacting with that level. Hopefully get some nice wicks to the downside on the 4H. Look for some momentum on the hourly. Now we'll be looking to take it back to highs there for this one, and then maybe you can hold it to 2075 as well. If it doesn't hold and we start breaking structure, then there might actually be some sells for gold. If you start breaking through the lows here on the left, I'm not too keen on taking the shorts for gold. I'm kind of exclusively looking for longs for the pair. So if you do start breaking to the downside, that I do think this will probably be a decent opportunity, breaking retest of the low, but I'll be waiting for this to be turning bullish again, and then I'll start looking for my buys back to the upside to those all-time highs. But for next week, this will be the plan, looking for buys at pretty much current price 2000. If we can hold that, then yeah, looking for a push into 2049 for next week. Okay, so Bitcoin's trading at some key prices now. We had a big surge to the upside on Monday early on, and now we're trading around that 30k 31k area, which I've been talking about on the weekly time frame. So that's a very key level here, and I'm interested to see what Bitcoin does. Do we rally straight through, or do we respect and see some downside? Personally, for Bitcoin, it's a big level, so I do expect to see some type of reaction. I'm not too sure how much a reaction will be. Might see a slight decline, might see a big decline, but I do think we'll probably get a reaction at this area. We do have another level up here. The market could look to go and test as well, around 35k. This broken support level broke through some momentum, never got the retest of it, so that's still going to be an area of value. But right now we are trading at 1, so I'm interested to see what Bitcoin can do now. We're starting to show some signs of exhaustion. You can see strong impulse, and straight away the market is very, very corrective coming to this area. So I want to see some equal highs at least, or preferably some lower highs printed first, and then the sells could be looking good. Again, keeping it simple as traders here, we're looking for a push back down to 29k. Like I said, it could be a small reaction, it could be a big one, but this is definitely, as a trader, an area that you want to be keen to be taking profit at least, or even just close the trade completely. So yeah, 29k, keep an eye on that. Stronger resistance, broke through good momentum. If you do come back to area, there's a big possibility of a reaction. So looking at shorts for Bitcoin, I would say still premature right now to be looking to sell. I know it's at a great area, but the market's still printing higher highs and higher lows. We need that to be stopped, some equal highs at least, or preferably some lower highs being printed, and then you can look to short one of them and take advantage of the move back down to 29k and maybe further as well. So keep an eye on Bitcoin. It's in a good area, but it needs some development before shorting. It's still bullish. We need that exhaustion. We need that shift in structure first before looking to actually short it, and then you can look for some entries back down to 29k. But keep an eye out for that development for next week. So Bitcoin, really good level. Looking for some shorts, looking for reaction to the downside back to 29k. And last but not least, our bonus pair, which is Aussie Swiss. So I'm looking at a lot more downside for Aodu CHF on the higher time frames. This is a very bearish market pretty much since the dawn of time. I've been talking about this one on my live streams. And NZD CHF as well. You can see if you zoom out, go back all the way to 1980, the market has been in a very steady decline. So the chance of us coming back down to these lows are pretty high. Every time the market continues this trend, we're always printing some new all-time lows according to this market. Maybe if it goes back, it's been here before, but according to from 1980, we've been seeing new all-time lows every time this trend has continued. So most likely we'll probably see a push back down to that support level highlighted there, and most likely see a push past that wick and see some new all-time lows. So I do think for this one, any rallies, any good meaningful rallies to areas of confluence, your best bet is just be looking for some sales and continue this trend. No need to overcomplicate it more than that. So we got this big monthly zone not too far away, around 0.5. We'll call it 0.59. It's a little bit underneath 0.59, but that's a nice psychological level we can aim for. So we're looking at more downside into 0.59. The market is quite corrective right now. You can see we're kind of in this descending channel. So I don't really want to do anything with price in this area. I do think we can get a pop to the upside. This is normally a sign that the market is getting ready for some retracement. So I hope we can see that push to the upside. And when we get that push, or if we get that push, I should say, that's when I'll start looking for some entries for the next leg to the downside. You can see we're getting some nice structure here. We've got one high there, second one there. I'm looking at our third lower high forming around here, specifically on the retest of this structure, just above 0.61. Really nice support, broke through with good momentum, hasn't been retested yet as well. So I'm looking for the retest of that. And we've also got some really good fib confluence coming into that area there, just between the 0.5 and 0.6182. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at AUD CHF for the shorts. Really good confluence up there against up to AUD CHF if it wants to see that move. Normally this price action, which is very corrective, normally does lead to a pop to the upside, but it might just be extremely bearish and open up bearish on the week when the week starts, and it could just roll over. If that's the case, it's a missed opportunity, but if we do get a pop to the upside, I'll be keen for a lower high to develop somewhere and then push back down eventually to that level. May just call it a day at that low there at 0.598. But if I do, I'll probably leave small amount to run to the lows there, because there's a very, very high chance the market will get there if history wants to repeat itself. So that'll be a plan going forward for Aussie Swiss. Really good confluence here, good probability. Just need to see that retracement to the upside first into that 0.61 area, and then I'll start looking for my shorts. So yeah, that kind of sums up the video, guys. I hope you have found it useful and enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it already as well. Make sure you do hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Comment down below if there's a specific video or specific pair you want to see as a bonus for the following weekly analysis video. So feel free to do that if you want to. But thank you so much, guys, for watching the video. Have a fantastic week, and I'll catch you all in the next one.